Why the world is so fucked up in 60 seconds. Human beings organize themselves into hierarchies. The structure of those hierarchies is determined by competence. To keep the hierarchy stable, you have two oppositional parties, the left and the right. Both are essential. The right's job is to maintain a free market so that everybody has a chance at success. The left's job is to give voice to the oppressed. Now, the reason that our world feels very unstable right now is because left-wing media companies, the ones that are supposed to be fighting for the oppressed, are actually owned by the people at the top of the hierarchy. That would be CNN, MSNBC, and other billion-dollar left-wing networks. The reason that these companies are so big in the first place is because left-wing presidential candidates pay these networks hundreds of millions of dollars to make the other party look bad. They typically do this by using anecdotal stories to push a larger narrative. You can see how this happened with the murder of George Floyd or with the kneeling of Colin Kaepernick. These individual instances have led millions of people of color to believe that they are oppressed. Some other tactics include identity politics.
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump and you ain't black,
staging fake stories, or just by creating narratives from total scratch. Thanks for watching Why the World is So Fucked Up in 60 Seconds, Part 2. In 1776, the U.S. was founded on the principles of providing individuals with the freedom to do, be, speak, and live as they please. The idea was that by encouraging diversity of ideas, cultures, and beliefs, that a meritocratic society would form, meaning that the best ideas would be adopted by the most people. But in the 1970s, the term political correctness, which was borrowed from Chinese communist text, emerged into American culture. Before that, the term was used to describe the thoughts and beliefs that the communist government deemed to be correct. Over the next 40 years, the term would be weaponized by left-wing politicians to vilify certain beliefs and ideologies.
He's quite literally saying Judge Guriel can't do his job because of his ethnicity.
Since then, political correctness has been used to suppress free speech, invent new genders, embrace obesity, to vilify the wealthy, and to glorify victimhood. Now look, I know we all want to be treated equally and fairly, but freedom comes at the cost of equality. We're not equal. We don't look the same, we don't act the same, and we don't come from the same background. And so you can either seek acceptance for being a loser, or you can earn it for being a winner. You decide. I'm out. Why the World is So Fucked Up in 60 Seconds, Part 3, let's go! After years of hobnobbing with global elites, voracious real estate mogul Donald Trump decided to run for president of the United States. Within a day, he'd go from a beloved symbol of wealth to the most hated man in America through the use of media manipulation.
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists. When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're sending people that have lots of problems.
But that's just the beginning. After destroying China's Employee of the Month, Trump's presidency would consist of a fruitless FBI investigation, an over-politicized flu virus being used to lock down the entire nation, and government-endorsed rioting and looting.
There is a legitimacy to this anger.
Oxford defines oppression as the state of being subject to unjust treatment or control. And after seeing all this stuff, it's not that hard to see how his presidency fits that description perfectly. Look, people, Trump is exposing the corruption that has existed in Washington for years. They're just scared as fuck, so they're throwing a global temper tantrum about it. Hating Trump is exactly what they want you to do. Thanks for watching, Snowflakes. Like for Part 4. Why the World is So Fucked Up, Part 4. In the early 1900s, millions of hardworking European immigrants poured into the U.S. after years of famine and oppression. Over the following decades, many of these immigrants who came from nothing would work themselves to the bone in order to achieve what would later be known as the American Dream. When raising their kids, these tough immigrant parents instilled the same sense of hard work and independence that allowed them to find success. But given the fact that their kids didn't have to work in order to survive, discipline started to feel like abuse and the rebellion began.
pleased to meet you.
Anyway, once the hippies sobered up, they started to become parents themselves. Their mainstream parenting strategy?
I'm not gonna abuse my kids the same way that my parents abused me.
Oh boy. This is the reason that everyone's a pussy.
Excuse me, sir, but I actually have a pussy and I don't appreciate using my genitals as an insult.
Anyway, look, it's all these last place trophies, self-acceptance, helicopter parents that has destroyed personal accountability as well as kids' self-esteem, which has led these dumb fucks to push for equality of outcomes, suppression of hate speech, and group identities. Tell me how much you hate me in the comments, Part 5. Why the World is So Fucked Up, Part 5. Throughout history, the animal kingdom has flourished an entire ecosystem made up of primarily two genders, except for the non-binary tiger, of course. But as the different animal groups came to be, the differences between men and women became clear. With few exceptions, male species display traits of dominance and competition, while women display more nurturing and passive traits. Nature encourages women to be attracted to these traits so that the strongest males can reproduce and the weakest can die off. But all that's been eliminated because some women decided that male traits are toxic.
Toxic masculinity.
Since then, men have been encouraged to replace traits such as aggression and dominance with care and empathy. The problem is that this shift is causing a radical decline in self-esteem amongst young men. Look, our evolutionary biology does not change in a day, and so women still like dominant and strong men. There's plenty of toxic men out there, but the same masculine masculinity itself is toxic is fucking pathetic. Men who bottle up their emotions or beat their wives, they're not masculine. That's just being a fucking idiot. Masculinity is about being a source of strength, being tough, being a protector. Men should be encouraged to do that. And if you disagree with that, then you can kiss my toxically. While the World is So Fucked Up, Part 6. In 1965, the abolishment of Jim Crow laws marked the first time in American history where blacks and whites were equal in the eyes of the law. But while the law might have said we're equal, most people to this day believe that the majority of the struggles that African Americans face is a result of the aftermath of past oppression. But that's wrong. The facts are that compared to whites, the rate of single-parent households is 3 times greater in black communities. On average, blacks score 30% lower in financial literacy, and blacks commit crimes at a 5 times higher rate than whites. Take a look at these statistics and it becomes clear that blacks are far more responsible for their own struggles than this idea of systemic racism. Now let me explain why you still think I'm a racist, stupid incel. For years, the left has campaigned on group identity, meaning your circumstances are actually a result of your group, not your actions in life. But the fact is, nobody's ever blamed their way to the top. In fact, winners do the opposite. They ignore the story of their community and embrace personal accountability instead. For the black community, this means fathering your kids, lowering the crime rate, and promoting financial literacy. And until that happens, the left will continue to the black community like the blood-sucking vultures that they are. Good talk, everybody. While the World is So Fucked Up, Part 7. In this series, we've covered important topics ranging from media to gender to racism and more. It's been viewed nearly 4 million times, and that's provided me with a unique perspective on the varying opinions about our world's issues. And if there's one thing I've noticed, it's that our country is facing a major self-esteem issue. From what I've seen, there's a large group of people that hold a narcissistic worldview, lack personal accountability, or feel a deep sense of anger towards others more successful than them. And what's become very clear is that our society is taking what were once happy, smiling, and playful kids and turning them into miserable, rage-filled adults who feel they've been wronged. I'm here to show you that you haven't been wronged, but you have been wildly misled. Misled to believe that the world should be equal, that you're perfect the way you are, and most importantly, that the outcome of your life is someone else's fault. But it's not, and I want to prove it to you. That's why my next project is a YouTube series called 0 to a Million, where I will be taking a business from 0 to a million. Starting a business is just one example where you're responsible for your own shit. So my goal is to show you that when you stop bitching and whining and you actually just start to fucking work, that good things happen. So go to my bio, check out the first episode, and I'll see you there. Unless you're a snowflake. No snowflakes allowed. While the World is So Fucked Up, Part 8. In 1931, the term American Dream was coined by James Adams in his book Epic of America. The term referred to a dream in which life should be more prosperous for every American. But just a few years later, the term would be hijacked by diabolical bankers, politicians, and businessmen. They would use the term to manipulate the American public into associating patriotism with personal debt. The prototypical life path they created looked a little something like this. Companies will start requiring employees to receive an education. The education will front-load the youth with lots of debt. This debt will force them into a steady job where they can be taxed at the highest rate possible. Once the college debt is finally paid off, the banks can lock them down into a 30-year mortgage, and any excess money they have can go to Wall Street, where the mutual funds can empty the retirement accounts. This American dream narrative has created a society of ignorant and obedient workers. 2/3 of the country doesn't have enough money to cover a $500 emergency, yet the average person watches 4 hours of TV a day. People want to blame the 1%, but you don't even realize you're the fucking peasants that are paying them. You know why they call it the American dream? Because you have to be lulled into it. Wake the fuck up and stop being a sheep. While the World is So Fucked Up, Part 9. Equality has been a major debate throughout the history of our country. From the gender wage gap to racial injustice to the fight for the use of gender pronouns, there's a large group of people in this country that feel they deserve more. But they don't, and here's why. For starters, this country was founded on the belief that because you were born, you inherently have value, and that value permits you to 3 human rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Equality is not one of those rights. Because some people are born smarter, prettier, stronger, or richer than others, our founding fathers instead created a framework that would allow us to organize ourselves into hierarchies based on our own natural abilities. The problem in today's world are the people who feel that their outcome is a result of their group identity and not their individual level of competence. Look, this country rewards a very specific kind of person. Confidence, ambition, persistence, charisma, self-awareness. Most of you probably think that you have these traits, but in reality you're just a fat fucking loser who would rather watch Cardi B jiggle her ass cheeks all day than go do something productive like learn a skill or clean your room. And those people are exactly the peasants they deserve to be. So stop fighting for your rights and go fix your fucking wrongs, you peasant. Goodbye! Why the World is So Fucked Up, Part 10. In 1773, a group known as the Sons of Liberty took part in the Boston Tea Party, where they coined the phrase "no taxation without representation." This impassioned yet precise protest would set the stage for future rebellions. From the Women's Suffrage Parade to the March on Washington, people showed up with specific demands and didn't stop until those demands were met. However, today's protesters do things a bit differently. You see, since there's no discriminatory legislation left to protest, today's Americans are tackling other crucial issues, such as financial success, white men, and the confusion of gender pronouns. What they don't realize is that their anger isn't even their own. They're simply puppets attached to the strings of the media, and when the media says dance, they dance. They prey on your inability to turn a blind eye to negativity by inflating anecdotal stories into absolute truth. And you can believe it if you want, but the real truth is that your brain is overlooking the good things that happen every single day. Babies are born, diseases are cured, people helping other people, love and joy spreading like wildfire. So when it's all said and done, you've got to ask yourself, is the world fucked up, or are you?